In the suburbs of Ohio at dusk, a brick house stood along a tree-lined street where autumn leaves were beginning to change color. From inside, children's laughter and the aroma of dinner wafted through the air. Mary Campbell was busy putting the finishing touches on dinner at the kitchen island counter, occasionally glancing at the wall clock while ignoring the phone that wouldn't stop ringing. "Mom, look! The dinosaur got on a spaceship." Hearing her 5-year-old daughter Emily's voice from the living room, Mary turned around with a smile. Emily continued drawing with intense concentration, surrounded by colorful crayons and drawing paper spread across the floor. Mary tied her soft chestnut hair back and entered the living room while untying her apron strings. "That's wonderful, Emily. You've drawn it so well." Mary admired her daughter's picture, then glanced at the phone that started ringing again. The display flashed the name Elizabeth. It was her mother-in-law calling. Mary let out a small sigh and picked up the receiver. "Good evening, Elizabeth." "Mary, you finally answered. I'll take Emily tomorrow afternoon. That child should be attending a more proper ballet school. My friend Martha runs a good one." Elizabeth's voice on the other end came through as always, presenting her decision as if it were already settled. Mary frowned. "Thank you, Elizabeth, but Emily has a pediatric checkup tomorrow. And she likes the school she's attending now. Then I'll take her to the hospital. You're busy with work, aren't you? Besides, Mary, that cheap school won't nurture Emily's talent." Mary was about to respond when she heard the front door open. Her husband Robert had come home. "Robert's home. Let's talk later." As she hung up, Robert appeared, looking tired. His work clothes were covered in dust from the construction site, and his blonde hair was damp with sweat. "Daddy!" Emily ran happily to her father. Robert's face lit up with a broad smile as he lifted his daughter and spun her around. "Hey, princess. What adventures did you have today?" Mary smiled watching her husband and daughter interact. Robert always showed unlimited love and tenderness toward his daughter. That was one of the reasons Mary's heart was drawn to him. But lately, she had noticed that something was changing. At dinner, Emily was quieter than usual. She just pushed her spaghetti around with her fork, hardly eating anything. "Emily, what's wrong? Does your tummy hurt?" Mary asked worriedly. Emily shook her head slightly, swinging her legs under the table. "I don't want to go to kindergarten." "Why not?" Robert asked. "Is the teacher scary? Or did you have a fight with a friend?" Emily remained silent, looking down. Mary and Robert exchanged glances. "It's okay, Emily. Tomorrow is hospital day, so you don't have to go to kindergarten," Mary reassured her daughter. That night, after putting their child to bed, the couple whispered to each other in their bedroom. "Don't you think Emily's been acting strange lately?" Mary asked worriedly. "She's been crying more at night, and her teacher reported some behavioral issues at kindergarten." Robert sat on the bed, loosening his tie with a tired expression. "It's just part of growing up. Don't worry too much." "But Mom was saying it too, you know. That you're spoiling her too much." Mary bit back her words. Every time Elizabeth's teachings about the right way to raise children came from Robert's mouth, Mary wanted to object. Her mother-in-law's views on child-rearing were vastly different from Mary's own. The next evening, Mary finished her hospital shift early and returned home. Opening the front door, she heard Elizabeth's voice from the living room. "Mary, I came before you got back. We need to talk about Emily." Mary frowned. She had planned to pick up Emily on her way home from work, but it seemed her mother-in-law had already collected her granddaughter. "I tried to give Emily a bath, but she refused to take off her clothes. That child has become stubborn because of your spoiling." At Elizabeth's accusation, Mary took a deep breath to stay calm. "Thank you, Elizabeth. But I'll handle it." After seeing her mother-in-law off, Mary went to her daughter's room. Emily was sitting on the bed, clutching a doll and trembling slightly. "Emily, it's bath time." Emily shook her head and resisted. "No, it hurts." Feeling anxious at her daughter's words, Mary gently encouraged her. "It's okay. It won't hurt when you're with Mommy." After much persuasion, Emily finally took off her clothes. That's when Mary gasped. A large bruise spread across her daughter's right arm. "Emily, how did you get this bruise?" Mary asked with a trembling voice. Emily fell silent again, looking at her mother with frightened eyes. "Did someone grab you?" "Who?" Emily just hugged her doll tightly, not answering. As morning light streamed through the window, Mary quietly woke her daughter. The bruise on Emily's arm hadn't faded overnight. If anything, it looked more vivid. Robert had left for the job site early in the morning, and Mary hadn't had time to consult with him properly, leaving only a brief message before leaving the house. "Today we'll see the doctor at Mommy's hospital," Mary said, gently stroking her daughter's hair. The brightly decorated waiting room at St. Joseph's Children's Hospital was already busy with children that morning. Though Mary worked at this hospital, today she was here as a mother, not as a nurse. "Mrs. Campbell, please come in," the receptionist called. In the examination room, pediatrician Dr. James Johnson, Mary's colleague, was waiting. He was known for his gentle nature and was popular with children. "Hello, Emily. What seems to be the problem today?" Dr. Johnson asked in a soft voice. Mary gently rolled up her daughter's sleeve, revealing the bruise. "I noticed it last night when I was trying to give her a bath." Dr. Johnson's expression changed instantly. He narrowed his eyes behind his glasses and began carefully examining the bruise. "Emily, how did this happen? Did you bump into something or fall down?" Emily remained silent, staring at the floor. "Are there any other areas that concern you?" the doctor asked Mary. Mary shook her head. "I've only found this arm. But recently, her behavior has changed. She's been crying more at night, and there have been problems at kindergarten." Dr. Johnson nodded silently and began examining Emily's body carefully. He continued talking gently throughout the examination, but his expression remained stern. Mary began to feel anxious watching the doctor's methodical examination of various parts of Emily's body. After the examination, Dr. Johnson didn't look at Mary but signaled to Nurse Janet, who was standing at the doorway. "Mrs. Campbell, I need to speak with you. Janet will play with Emily, so could you come with me to another room?" Mary told Emily, "I'll be right back," and followed the doctor. They walked down the hallway and entered a small consultation room. In the windowless room, Dr. Johnson sat across from Mary with a serious expression. "Mary, let me speak as a professional first," he began quietly. "The bruise on Emily's arm is not the kind that comes from a simple fall or normal children's play. This clearly has the shape of an adult's hand, a mark from being grabbed with force." Mary's heart began to race. "What do you mean?" "Furthermore, there are traces of older bruises on her back. These show patterns that cannot be explained by a single accident. From these symptoms, we have to consider the possibility of child abuse." Mary caught her breath. "Abuse? But that's..." She couldn't continue. Dr. Johnson removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "By law, I am obligated to report such symptoms to Child Protective Services. I've already contacted them." Mary shook her head. "Wait. This must be some mistake. We love our daughter. Abuse." "Mary," Dr. Johnson leaned forward and said in a heavy voice, "I want you to separate from your husband immediately." Those words fell like a block of ice on her chest. "What do you mean?" "There is suspicion that your husband is abusing your daughter. For Emily's safety, I recommend that you don't return home today but go to a shelter instead." Mary stood up from her chair. No, that's wrong. Robert loves his daughter. He would never. Mary, we've worked together for years. You're an excellent nurse. If this were any other parent and child, you would have the same suspicions, the doctor said gently, trying to reason with her. Abusers often present well to the outside world. Especially when it comes to a father abusing his daughter. No. Mary raised her voice. It's not Robert. He has never once raised a hand to our child. Dr. Johnson sighed and took a card from his desk drawer. This is the contact information for Sarah Fisher, a social worker from Child Protective Services. She will discuss the next steps for you and Emily. Mary took the card, feeling confused. As a nurse, she had seen cases of child abuse many times. The pattern of bruises, changes in the child's behavior, all were signs she recognized. But she couldn't believe it was happening in her own home. Who? Mary murmured. If not Robert, then who? At that moment, the image of her mother-in-law Elizabeth flashed in her mind. But she quickly dismissed it. Elizabeth was a strict and interfering woman, but surely she wouldn't hurt her own granddaughter. Dr. Johnson placed a hand on Mary's shoulder. I know you must be confused right now. But Emily's safety comes first. Do you have somewhere you can stay tonight? Mary thought of her friend Lisa, a longtime friend since nursing school who had always been there for her. Yes, I do. Good. Contact Miss Fisher and explain the situation. She'll help you both. When they returned to the examination room, Emily was looking at a picture book with Janet. Mary felt her heart constrict at the sight of her daughter's innocent face. I love you, Emily, Mary hugged her daughter, fighting back tears. As they left the hospital, Mary took out her cell phone. First, she contacted her friend Lisa, explained the situation, and asked if they could stay temporarily. Next, she called Sarah Fisher, the social worker. Finally, she sent a message to Robert. Emily and I are staying at Lisa's tonight. I need time to explain. I believe in you, but I must protect Emily. After sending the message, Mary turned off her cell phone. In confusion and fear, she began walking an unknown path, tightly holding her daughter's small hand. Protecting Emily was her only mission now. The week spent in Lisa's guest room felt like a nightmare to Mary. Her life suddenly seemed divided into before and after. Taking a sip of morning coffee, Mary gazed at the rain outside the window. Lisa had left early for her hospital shift, leaving Mary and Emily alone in the house. Her daughter, who was taking a break from school, was still sleeping in bed. Her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Sarah Fisher. Do you have time at 2 p.m. today? There are some things I'd like to discuss. After replying, Mary set down the receiver. In the past week, her life had been filled with legal procedures and meetings. Child Protective Services investigations, police interviews, and most painfully, the confrontation with Robert. He had been angry, confused, and hurt. Why don't you believe me? He had asked tearfully. How could I ever hurt our daughter? Mary wanted to believe him. But the bruises on Emily's body and the frightened expression she showed whenever her father's name was mentioned couldn't be ignored. Mary. She started and turned around. Emily was standing in the hallway. The small figure in pink pajamas looked more vulnerable than ever. Good morning, honey. Would you like breakfast? Mary smiled gently. Emily nodded silently and sat at the kitchen table. While making pancakes, Mary casually spoke to her daughter. Emily, we're going to see Sarah today. Remember? The nice lady. Emily silently poked at her pancake with her fork. Won't we see Daddy? That question stabbed Mary's heart. Not yet. We need a little more time. I miss Daddy. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Mary sat beside her daughter and hugged her small body. I know, honey. But this is an important time. To protect Emily. Did I do something bad? Emily's question tore at Mary's heart. No, absolutely not. You did nothing wrong, Mary firmly declared. By the way, does your arm bruise still hurt? Emily pulled back slightly. It's okay now. Can you tell Mommy who hurt you? Mary asked gently. Emily fell silent again, lowering her gaze. Mary didn't press further. The professionals had advised against putting pressure on the child. They had to wait until Emily was ready to talk. That afternoon, Sarah Fisher visited Lisa's house. She was a gentle woman in her 40s who had worked for Child Protective Services for over 20 years. How has Emily been recently? Sarah asked, drinking coffee in the living room. She's starting to open up a little. But she won't talk about what caused the bruises, Mary answered. Sarah wrote something in her notebook. And how about Robert? He's hired a lawyer. He says he wants to prove his innocence, Mary said, gazing out the window. I want to believe him too. But when I think about Emily. You're doing the right thing, Mary, Sarah said kindly. Putting your daughter's safety first is natural for a mother. Their conversation was interrupted by a noise from the room where Emily was playing. Sarah went with Mary to check on her. Emily was alone, building something with toy blocks. Hello, Emily. Remember me? I'm Sarah. Emily nodded shyly. That's a lovely block house. Who lives there? Sarah asked gently. Me and Mommy, Emily answered in a small voice. And Daddy. Emily's hand stopped. She remained silent, lowering her head. Sarah glanced at Mary, then turned back to Emily. Emily, we want to protect you. If you tell us who hurt you, we can make sure that person never hurts you again. The room fell into silence. Mary watched with bated breath. Emily began. I can't say. I'm scared. What are you scared of? Sarah gently prompted. If I tell, worse things will happen. Mary's heart raced. Who told you that, Emily? Emily just shook her head and started playing with the blocks again. She refused to say anything more. That night, after Emily had fallen asleep, Mary spoke on the phone with Sarah. I want to introduce you to a specialized child psychologist, Sarah said. She's an expert in working with abused children. 2 days later, Mary took Emily to Dr. Judith Morris's office. It was a bright space, designed to make children feel secure. Children's drawings decorated the walls, and toys and picture books were placed in the corner of the room. Hello, Emily, Dr. Morris greeted with a warm smile. Shall we have a little chat today? Just the two of us, is that okay? Emily looked up at Mary. Mary smiled reassuringly at her daughter and said, It's okay. Mommy will be waiting right outside. An hour later, when the counseling session ended, Dr. Morris escorted Mary to a separate room. Her expression was solemn. Mrs. Campbell, there are some things I'd like to discuss with you, she began quietly. Mary sat down nervously. Did Emily tell you anything? Dr. Morris took a deep breath. She hasn't completely opened up yet, but there are several concerning points. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. First, your daughter is indeed suffering from abuse. Mary's chest tightened. However, Dr. Morris continued with a grave expression, according to your daughter, the person hurting her might not be her father, but someone else. Someone else. Mary caught her breath. Yes. It seems she's too afraid of this person to share details. She says this person told her to keep it a secret. Pieces began falling into place in Mary's mind. Emily's nightmares in the middle of the night, her words, if I tell, worse things will happen, and then. Grandma is scary. The words Emily had muttered when waking from a nightmare a few days ago suddenly came back to Mary's memory. Does anything come to mind? Dr. Morris asked. Mary bit her lip. My mother-in-law, Elizabeth. She often looks after Emily. She's a strict person. How is the relationship between your mother-in-law and Emily? On the surface, it's good. Elizabeth dotes on Emily. But Mary faltered. She's someone who insists on the right way to raise children. She's always criticizing my parenting methods. Dr. Morris nodded. Mrs. Campbell, this is a difficult situation. But considering this along with Emily's testimony, we may need to redirect our investigation. What should I do? Mary's voice trembled. First, let's share this new information with Sarah Fisher. And if your mother-in-law is truly involved, we'll need evidence. Mary stared out the window. Rain was quietly tapping against the glass. If her mother-in-law was hurting her daughter, the thought was terrifying and infuriating at the same time. But she had a way to find out. I understand, Mary steeled her resolve. I'll gather evidence. After leaving Dr. Morris's office, Mary called Sarah. When she explained her plan, Sarah was initially hesitant but eventually agreed to help. Don't take any risks, Sarah warned. We must prioritize Emily's and your safety. I understand, Mary replied. But we need to know the truth. That night, when they returned to Lisa's house, Emily was already asleep. Mary gazed at her daughter's sleeping face and quietly wept. If her instinct was right, Emily's injuries were caused not by her father, but by her grandmother. Mary kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, Mommy will protect you. The next morning, Mary met with Sarah Fisher early to make detailed plans. The two sat facing each other in a cafe, speaking in hushed voices. While this investigative method isn't standard procedure, Sarah chose her words carefully. Considering Emily's safety as our priority, we need to gather evidence quickly. Mary tightly gripped her coffee cup and nodded. Elizabeth used to take care of Emily every Thursday. She insisted that quality time with grandmother was necessary. Her voice was bitter. Installing hidden cameras is legally in a gray area, but it may be acceptable in your own home, Sarah explained. However, audio recording regulations vary by state. It shouldn't be a problem in my house, Mary was determined. I'll tell Robert that we're temporarily returning. I can't tell him the truth yet. Sarah nodded slightly. I hope he trusts you. Tomorrow morning, a technician will install the equipment. The cameras will be placed discreetly in the living room and children's room. The plan was set in motion. Mary called Robert to let him know they were temporarily returning home. Though confused, he seemed to find hope in the family's reunion. Do you really believe me? His voice trembled. I want to believe you, Mary answered cautiously. But above all, my duty is to protect Emily. I understand. Robert said in a heavy voice. I'll stay at my brother's place for a few days. So Emily won't be scared. The next day, a technician arranged by Sarah visited the house and installed small cameras in the living room and Emily's room. Everything was set up to wirelessly transmit video to Sarah's computer. Then, Mary called Elizabeth. Elizabeth, we've returned home, Mary feigned calmness. I have to go back to work tomorrow. Would you mind looking after Emily? On the other end of the phone, Elizabeth was silent for a moment before brightening her tone and answering, of course, Mary. I'd be happy to, any time for her. I'm so glad you've come back home. Thank you, Mary answered, biting her lip. Could you come at 8 a.m.? I'll be leaving at 8:30. All right. I'm looking forward to it. After hanging up, Mary exhaled deeply. She had agreed with Sarah to leave Emily and wait nearby, monitoring the video feed. If there was any sign of danger, they would immediately return to the house. That night, as Mary tucked Emily into bed, she spoke gently. "Grandma is coming tomorrow." Mary didn't miss how Emily's body stiffened. "Are you scared?" Mary asked quietly. Emily nodded slightly. "It's okay. Mommy will be close by." Mary hugged her daughter tightly. "If Grandma does anything, tell me right away." The next morning, Elizabeth arrived on time. She was wearing an elegant dress and had brought a present for Emily. "Oh, my precious granddaughter," Elizabeth called to Emily in a sweet voice. Emily approached her grandmother cautiously. "Good morning, Elizabeth," Mary greeted while changing into her uniform. "You're really helping me out." Elizabeth waved her hand with a smile. "Don't worry about it. We'll have fun, won't we, Emily?" Mary kissed her daughter and said, "See you later, honey," before leaving the house. But she didn't go to the hospital. Instead, she headed to a nearby cafe where Sarah was waiting. There, Sarah had a laptop open, monitoring the video feed from the house. Mary sat next to her, feeling tense. "Nothing so far," Sarah said. For the first hour, Elizabeth played with toys and read picture books with Emily. Her behavior was that of a perfect grandmother. Mary was starting to feel ashamed of her suspicions. "See? She's..." Sarah suddenly interrupted Mary. "Wait, look." On the screen, Elizabeth was urging Emily to change into a dress. "This pink dress, Grandma specially chose it for you. Come on, let's change." "No," Emily resisted quietly. "I like this one that Mommy bought." Elizabeth's expression changed slightly. "Emily, listen to your grandmother. Your mother is raising you all wrong. To become a proper lady, you must listen to what Grandma says." "But..." "No buts." Elizabeth's voice suddenly became harsh. She grabbed Emily's arm and gripped it tightly. "Good girls obey without question." Mary caught her breath. "She's..." Elizabeth pulled Emily's arm, dragging her toward the dress. When Emily began to cry, Elizabeth said in a low voice, "Don't cry. This is for your own good. It's our secret from Mommy. If you tell, you'll face worse consequences." "Sarah, we need to go now." Mary stood up. "We have enough evidence." Sarah also stood up, already making a phone call. "I'm contacting the police. We should return immediately." Minutes later, Mary, the police, and Sarah arrived at the house. When they entered, Emily was sitting on the sofa crying, with Elizabeth standing beside her. "What is this about?" Elizabeth asked coldly. The cruel expression from earlier had vanished from her face, replaced by a confused grandmother's look. Mary rushed to Emily and hugged her. "It's okay, honey. I won't let anyone hurt you again." A police officer approached Elizabeth. "Ma'am, there's suspicion of child abuse. Your actions were recorded." "What?" Elizabeth's face changed color. "I didn't do anything. I was just disciplining her." Sarah opened her laptop and showed the recorded footage to the officer. The blood drained from Elizabeth's face. "I was just giving her proper discipline," Elizabeth made excuses, her voice trembling. "Children who are spoiled will struggle in the future. Mary is spoiling Emily too much." Mary was shaking with anger but tried to maintain her composure. "Don't ever come near my daughter again," she said quietly but firmly. The officer turned to Elizabeth. "Ma'am, please come with us to the station. I recommend you contact your lawyer." While Elizabeth was being taken away by the police, Mary sat on the sofa with Emily, holding her close. "It's okay now, Emily. Grandma won't hurt you anymore." Emily cried softly, burying her face in her mother's chest. "I'm sorry, Mommy. I couldn't say. I was scared. It's not your fault, Mary gently stroked her daughter's hair. You did nothing wrong. Sarah placed a hand on Mary's shoulder. Mrs. Campbell, you did well. Emily is a brave girl. That evening, Robert rushed home. He looked incredulous at what had happened. My mother. He collapsed into a chair. My mother hurt Emily. Mary nodded quietly. She was hurting Emily under the guise of proper discipline. Robert covered his face with his hands. I should have known. Mom's discipline was always strict. But to think she would do this to her own granddaughter. Mary sat next to her husband and took his hand for the first time in weeks. I'm sorry for suspecting you. Robert shook his head tearfully. No, you were right. I trusted my mother too blindly. I couldn't protect our daughter. I'm so sorry. That night, the three of them spent time under the same roof for the first time in a while. Though wounds remained, the healing process had finally begun. 6 months later, a small barbecue party was being held in the Campbells' backyard. Mary gazed at the newly planted tulip bed, quietly reflecting on the changes of the past half-year. Elizabeth had been charged with child abuse and received a suspended sentence. The court had issued a restraining order keeping her away from Emily, and she was required to undergo mandatory counseling. Robert stood in front of the barbecue grill, wearing an apron and cooking meat. He had been deeply shocked by his mother's actions and blamed himself for the first few weeks. However, through couples counseling, they had gradually rebuilt their relationship. Isn't it done yet? Mary called from behind Robert. Robert turned around and showed a smile. It wasn't as carefree as before, but there was definite warmth there. Almost. Where's Emily? Playing with Lisa, Mary pointed to the patio. There, Emily and Lisa were playing with soap bubbles. Emily's laughter echoed throughout the garden. Emily's recovery had been remarkable. For the first few weeks, she had been troubled by nightmares and feared human contact, but therapy with the child psychologist had helped her gradually regain her spirit. Now she looked forward to visiting Dr. Morris every Wednesday. She's a strong girl, Robert said quietly. Like you. Mary smiled. We all had to be strong. Surprisingly, Elizabeth herself had shown change. Through mandatory counseling, she had begun to face the underlying issues behind her actions. She herself had grown up under a strict father, and his parenting method had become her standard for proper discipline. Last week, Elizabeth spoke about her experience for the first time at an awareness gathering for child abuse prevention held at the local community center. I thought I was loving her, but I was hurting her, she confessed. Now I understand that was wrong. Mom, look. Emily came running, interrupting Mary's thoughts. I made a big soap bubble. That's wonderful. Mary lifted her daughter. The bruises on Emily's arms had completely disappeared. But the emotional wounds would need time to heal. That was true not just for Emily, but for the entire family. At twilight, family and friends gathered around the garden table. Lisa and Sarah had also been invited. Sarah was still monitoring Emily's progress, but today she visited as a friend rather than in an official capacity. A toast. Lisa raised her glass. To new beginnings. The sound of glasses touching blended into the gentle spring air. Mary smiled quietly. She had come to think deeply about the meaning of family. Blood ties were just one part of being a family. True family meant respecting and protecting each other. They still had a long road ahead of them. But now, they had begun walking that road together.